You are probably wondering what I, your humble dungeon master, am doing reading the introduction and why these fine players seem especially anxious. Now, I'm sure you've been following our adventures very closely, but if not, I'm going to recap what has happened so far in Génie's Lamp. Let's begin by meeting the heroes of our story. Génie, give us a wave. There we are, is the proprietor of Génie's Lamp, a cafe in North Waterdeep, as well as catering to his Waterdavian clientele and battling a crippling addiction to brie. He is a secret Harper agent. Consequently, his cafe doubles up as a Harper safe house, used to store secret items and to be a safe meeting place for agents. But although Génie only wants a quiet life in his cafe, he is continually drawn into trouble. But he does have help. Oriana is the hero's rogue, a former bounty hunter turned vigilante. She is probably the closest thing the heroes have to a moral compass, which speaks to the depths to which our heroes are willing to stoop. It's more of a roulette wheel than a fully functioning compass. And perhaps, hidden in her past, is a secret so painful that she keeps running to do what she has failed to do before. Speaking of pain, Howl is perhaps the most familiar with pain of all of the party. As a teenager, his father attempted to kill him in order to seal a pact with Silshard, a demonic entity, an embodiment of greed. But the deal backfired, and Howl instead became Silshard's patronee. Several months ago, Howl and Silshard sacrificed themselves in order to prevent Faerun's destruction in a worldwide crisis. Both have since returned in new bodies. Howl, the same awkward boy as ever, and Silshard, learning to live as a mortal for the first time. But mortality is not something all of the party share, because Alec, in the most bizarre case of nominative predetermination, is a lich. He is a powerful wizard, one of the only beings in the world, who has the ability to travel through time, a skill that the DM does not let him ever use again. He has an adopted son, Piddlewick, a robot from Barovia, whose own quest to become a real boy lends Alec no small measure of parental angst. Alec is the brains of the party, Howl is the heart, Oriana is the soul, and Génie is the long-suffering conscience. At the beginning of our campaign, we found our heroes in their cafe. When they received the news that their patron and protector, Laurel Silverhand, the Open Lord of Waterdeep, for whom they had completed many a task, had been deposed by the Council of the Masked Lords. Arriving at Castle Waterdeep, they met Laurel and her successor, a smarmy politician by the name of Ranulf Ilvaster. Ranulf, to his credit, recognised our heroes as the saviours of Faerun from the recent crisis and invited them to his inauguration ball at the Waterdavian Gallery. But in a predictable twist, he had ulterior motives in mind. The intelligence-gathering branch of the Harpers, headed by Cassius Aethar, whom Howl fancies, has received information that suggests that the ball was going to be attacked, but they didn't know when, or by whom, or why. Laurel implored our heroes to do as Ranulf asked of them. It was important to her that the heroes stayed in Ranulf's good books. She was concerned about the way she lost power, and believed that it could be part of a larger and more nefarious conspiracy. And so our heroes attended the ball, and as expected, it was attacked by Zentarim. Our heroes leapt into action to dispatch the rogues and to save the day, but in the process, one civilian attendee of the party was shot and killed by the Zentarim. Yet although it seemed the threat had been dealt with, the guards discovered that the attack on the party was merely a cover for a thief to break into the museum and steal a king's tear, a gemstone from a distant elven land that has the capacity to be imbued with memories and fragments of souls. Ranulph turned on our heroes. They should have known. They should have acted sooner, should have done more. Some heroes they are. Laurel asked them to investigate the theft and the circumstances of the Zentarim attack. She sensed something was wrong with this picture and knew that Ranulph was already on a war footing against the Zentarim. Our heroes ventured into the museum and gathered some clues as to the identity of the thief. They also got in touch with Howell's uncle, Lord Thomas Blackwood, who by happy coincidence is the head of the Zentarim. Between the evidence they gathered and Thomas's intel, our heroes concluded that the Zentarim were not behind the attack, but rather they had been framed. Piecing together what they knew and new information passed to them by Cassius, who, I must remind you, Howell fancies, they discovered the identity of the thief. Cécile Dubois, a former Zentarim fixer from the organisation of the Zentarim, who left the Zentarim after Thomas took over. She allowed the heroes to find her and speak with her. It seems Thomas had a vested interest in the heroes finding her, however. She broke her oath to him and to the Zentarim. So she asks the heroes for their help to save her life from Howell's uncle and from the city of Waterdeep, as a condition for revealing what she knows about the King's Tears, the ones that she's stolen, the ones that she's been asked to steal, and the person or people who asked her to steal them. Our heroes began to put together the beginnings of a conspiracy, because it seems that Cécile had been hired by the Queen of Cormyr to steal a number of King's Tears from across Faerun. The heroes knew that Ranulph Ilvaster paid a visit to Cormyr 6 months ago, and that it was at this point that he began to play a serious role in Waterdavian politics. Our heroes believed that somehow the Queen of Cormyr, Ranulph Ilvaster, and the King's Tears were all connected, so they ventured to Cormyr to meet the Queen. But the present is not the only source of anxiety for our heroes. Oriana began to hear whispers on the wind that sounded like the voice of Sam, her beloved fiancé, a man killed some years ago in mysterious circumstances. This anxiety was only made worse when Cassius, the one whom Howell fancies, brought news that the Harpers had been ordered to reopen the investigation into Sam's demise. It wouldn't be long, they believed, before Oriana's connection to the death was revealed. Confiding in Alec, her friend offered to help her unlock more memories of that fateful day. Together, they journeyed into Oriana's mind. They saw the day that Sam proposed to Oriana, a beautiful summer's day. They drank the most amazing champagne, ate the most amazing food in a beautiful picnic, and at the end Sam got down on one knee and proposed to his beloved. No sooner had she said yes, no sooner had the smile of ultimate joy crossed Sam's face than an explosion of fire consumed them both. And when the smoke cleared, Sam was dead, eviscerated in the fire. Oriana fled, alive, fearful for what would happen to her if people suspected that she might be responsible. But Alec noted that the memory was imperfect. It had been distorted from reality by joy and sorrow, and he vowed to help his friend continue to unlock her true memories, to see what really happened, and maybe at last to find some peace. Oriana still carries the engagement rings that Sam had bought for them both. Meanwhile, Silshard and Howell had a conversation in which Silshard asked Howell whether or not the heroes were overreacting to the idea of a conspiracy. Silshard pointed out that the heroes seem to believe they function best when they have a foe, and that they talk about enemies a lot more than they used to. Silshard is worried about their friends, and doesn't want to see them spiral into anger or confusion for the sake of an imagined enemy. But speaking of enemies, Howell and his uncle Thomas came to a disagreement. Thomas, wanting to discover if they could successfully look after themselves and their friends, tried to kidnap Ben Benson, the cafe's 18-year-old general manager. Howell foiled his attempt, and Thomas implored his nephew to take threats against him and his friends seriously. Howell was furious, and Thomas departed, for the first time in his life, on the back foot. Travelling to Cormyr with Cecile, our heroes decided to approach the Queen, Queen Rhaedra, and see if they could discover anything more about Ranulf and his rise to power, and about the King's Tears. Cecile and Oriana had a very pleasant chat, swapping stories about bounty hunting, thievery, and their particular modus operandi. But that's an aside, and that can't possibly be relevant to any later story, can it? Anyway, our heroes met the Queen of Cormyr. She immediately recognised them, as did most of her court. They are, after all, the famous heroes of Faerun, saviours of the world from the crisis. And she disclosed to them that she had been hunting for information concerning the lost library of Terrachmus, and an item of great magical power. Her fiancé, Oberyn Crownsilver, had gone to attempt to find the library, but went missing. She believes that the King's Tear that Cecile stole contains the information that she needs not only to retrieve the item, but to find her lost love. And so Oriana, being moved by the story of a missing fiancé, smashed one of the King's Tears and learned the location of the lost library. Before they could set out on adventure, however, they received news from Ben that the cafe at home had received a tax bill of 100,000 gold pieces. Cecile promised to go back to Waterdeep to assist with rectifying this obvious administrative error. Speaking of errors, our heroes were accosted by a ruffian who said that helping the Queen was itself a grave error of judgment. He said that she only cares about power, and that she likely sent Oberyn to his death, caring little for him, only for the reward that he could provide her. The suspicions were raised, but they proceeded on their quest with the Queen and a detachment of her best courtiers. The adventurers accompanying the heroes on their expedition were delighted to be in the presence of famous people of such stature as they, and together they slew a hydra and ventured into a lost library. In the library, they searched for the item of great magical power that the Queen sought, and any trace of Oberyn. They found neither. Instead, Howell thought it would be a good idea to put his prized weapon, Gleipnir, the weapon which once bound his life to the pact with his patron Silshard, into a sphere of annihilation. And it was, as the name suggests, annihilated. But before the shock could set in, the Queen revealed that she was indeed more concerned about locating a book rumoured to contain a portion of the soul Terrachmus and the power to cause irreparable harm. Our heroes discovered that Oberyn may have beaten them to the book, and was trying to prevent the Queen from ever retrieving it. They tried to intervene, but she reminded them that without their reputation they are nothing. They think of themselves as heroes, but in reality they are nothing more than jumped-up wannabes who have stumbled into success. A success that she would now easily rip from them. Having been set on by the Queen and her troops, our heroes did the only sensible thing, and leapt into the abyss and fell into darkness. Back at home, Piddlewick, Alec's robot son, had been attending school. He'd made some friends, some children named Nat, Jenks and Squidly, and the four of them were walking home from school when they were attacked by their Latin teacher, who turned out to be a harpy. They were rescued from a crossover into the Percy Jackson universe by Thomas Blackwood after the whole kidnapping Ben incident had decided to keep a significantly more distant but nevertheless vigilant eye on the children. They were taken back to the cafe where they did their homework and ate pancakes. The kids, styling themselves as a firm of private investigators, overheard a conversation about the high tax bill, and also who Thomas and Ben suspected was behind the kidnap attempt: Ranulf Ilvaster. The kids decided to do something about them both. They ventured to Castle Waterdeep and, bluffing their way through to the tax office, sought an audience with the chief tax clerk. And whilst the clerk was out of the office, the kids found the tax bill for the cafe, discovered that it had been artificially altered by order of the Open Lord, and corrected the error. But not before bumping into Cécile Dubois, who for some reason was prowling the corridors of the castle. And after leaving the tax office, they noticed Ranulph Ilvaster and decided to follow him. Hiding themselves among the furniture in his office, they witnessed the most remarkable sight. Bursting into the office and letting loose a volley of arrows at the Open Lord was Oriana. Or was it? Surely Oriana wouldn't do such a thing. Surely Oriana was thousands of miles away in Cormyr, somewhere far from here with the other heroes, not in Waterdeep. And so, here we are. Our heroes have managed to reach and remain hidden in Alec's old home in Luskan, unaware of what awaits them when they return to Waterdeep and learn what has happened there. But this is what they do know. Loss. Loss of their patron and friend. Loss of their allies. Loss of their comfort in happy memory. Loss of their treasured possessions. Surely there can't be anything more to lose.